गॉट इट पे क्लिक किया और यहाँ पे आपने जो स्क्रीन लेनी है वो कंप्लीट स्क्रीन लेनी है, सिंगल स्क्रीन नहीं लेनी। आपको यहाँ पे स्टार्ट नो का बटन नजर आ रहा है, स्क्रीन पे पॉसिबिलिटी है कि आपको नजर ना आए, उसके लिए मुझे सेकंड मोबाइल पकड़ना पड़ेगा ताकि आपके लिए समझना आसान हो जाए। एट अ टाइम आप यहाँ पे यूट्यूब की लाइव चला सकते हैं या फिर स्क्रीन रिकॉर्डिंग कर सकते हैं। तो मैं आपको मोबाइल की दूसरे मोबाइल की स्क्रीन पे लाइव करके दिखा देता हूँ। लाइव का ऑप्शन सबसे पहले आपने पेंसिल
lost in the dark. But with its unprecedented infrared vision, the impossible is finally in view. Astronomers have given them a deceptively simple name, little red dots. Yet behind that name hides a mystery so deep, so unsettling, that it could rewrite the story of the universe itself. Some scientists suspect they are the missing link between the first galaxies and the monstrous black holes that anchor them. Others whisper that they may be something stranger still, remnants of a time when the universe itself played by rules that no longer exist. Today we dive into one of James Webb's most baffling discoveries. And what you're about to hear may forever change how you imagine the cosmos. This mystery doesn't begin today. To understand it, we need to step back almost a century, to an age when radio astronomy was still in its infancy. In the 1950s, astronomers stumbled across an object called 3C273. It looked like a star but behaved like nothing in the skies. It radiated intense energy across the spectrum, pulsed regularly, and displayed chemical fingerprints that didn't match any known star. Soon, more of these strange objects were found. Astronomers gave them a name, quasi-stellar objects, or quasars, almost stars, but not quite. They were impossibly compact, smaller than our solar system, but so luminous that they were visible from billions of light years away. For decades, scientists argued about what they were, until one breakthrough changed everything. Quasars were powered by supermassive black holes feeding on swirling disks of matter. It took more than 20 years to crack that riddle. And now, James Webb has thrown us into the same kind of enigma once again. Webb has spotted hundreds of anomalies that resemble quasars yet refuse to fit the definition. They are smaller, dimmer, suffocated by clouds of dust, and visible only in the infrared spectrum. They look like echoes of quasars, but twisted, incomplete, and deeply out of place. Japanese astronomers first flagged these faint red anomalies using the Subaru telescope and called them SHELS, Subaru High Exploration of Low Luminosity Quasars. At first, they seemed like faint cosmic smudges, easily overlooked. But the more closely they were studied, the stranger they became. Their luminosity was far too high for their size, and their redness couldn't simply be explained by distance. When James Webb turned its gaze on them, the picture grew even stranger. These weren't ordinary galaxies cloaked in dust. They were smothered, wrapped in molecular fog so thick it swallowed entire signals of light. But infrared vision pierced through the curtain, and what it revealed was disturbing. Inside, gases whipped at staggering velocities, far faster than any star system should allow. The only explanation was gravity of immense power, black holes. Yet the galaxies hosting them were far too small, and their light signatures too bizarre to be ordinary quasars. As Webb's data piled up, a shocking connection emerged. These shells shared unusual traits with the so-called little red dots from Webb's earliest deep field images. They weren't galaxies. They weren't stars. And they weren't like any black hole-powered quasars we'd seen before. Even stranger, they appeared only in a very narrow window of cosmic time, from about 600 million to 1.5 billion years after the Big Bang. Before and after that, they vanished. So what could burn so brightly for a billion years and then disappear completely? Some astronomers believe they may represent the embryonic phase of quasars, cosmic seeds that grew too fast, burned too fiercely, and then either collapsed or evolved into the supermassive black holes we know today. Others see them as failed evolutionary experiments, paths the universe once tested but abandoned. And then there's the unsettling theory that these objects are remnants of another physics entirely, fossils from a time when the universe's laws were not yet settled. But perhaps the most disturbing part isn't what we see, but what we don't. Many of these red dots should be emitting powerful X-rays if they were truly active black holes. Yet to astronomers' surprise, they don't. For years, this seemed like proof they weren't black holes at all. But now, the leading explanation is even scarier. The dust choking these objects may be so thick, so suffocating that it swallows even X-rays. That would mean the most violent radiation in the cosmos is trapped, silenced, leaving only faint red whispers for Webb to detect. If true, then we have been missing entire populations of hidden black holes, not distant ones, but cloaked ones. Entire realms of cosmic power erased from our view by dust. This would mean the universe is home to far more supermassive black holes than we ever dared estimate. And yet, the questions only deepen. Why did these objects grow so quickly? Why did they vanish? And what else lies hidden in wavelengths we still can't see? Even stranger, their chemical fingerprints don't make sense. In most cosmic spectra, we find familiar elements: hydrogen, helium, carbon, oxygen. But here, many lines don't match anything. Some seem to require energies beyond what any star could create. Others appear unstable, flickering in and out as though they belong to matter we've never seen before. It's as if in its youth, the universe built things that today would be impossible, not just in structure, but in composition itself. And then there's the rhythm. Strange red dots appear to pulse in brightness, not due to stars or dust, but due to something deeper, a gravitational rhythm, perfectly timed fluctuations, as though matter were spiraling into a black hole, missing not just details but entire chapters of cosmic history. The more Webb looks, the more unsettling the picture becomes. These objects are not rare. They may number in the billions, scattered across the sky, waiting in infrared silence. They cluster in patterns like the Great Cosmic Web, yet their descendants are nowhere to be seen. Did they evolve? Did they collapse? Or did they vanish in a blaze of impossible physics? The thought that so much of the early universe was hidden from us until now is humbling and terrifying. We weren't looking in the wrong place. We were simply blind. And then comes the most radical idea of all. The laws of physics themselves weren't constant in the early universe. What if gravity, electromagnetism, even quantum mechanics behaved differently back then? These objects may be fossils from that alien epoch, remnants from before the universe settled into the rules we know today. Cosmic scars from a time when chaos reigned and reality itself was unstable. If so, then James Webb hasn't just found anomalies. It's on evidence that the universe itself changed its laws. In a universe we thought was ruled by order and predictable equations, Webb has uncovered a haunting truth. Not everything follows the rules. These strange, suffocated red anomalies, too small, too bright, too strange, are reminders that the universe was once far wilder and stranger than we can imagine. A time when galaxies were born in fire and dust, when black holes grew faster than logic allowed, and when physics itself had yet to be written. We thought we understood the story, but now we see objects too dense, too fast, too powerful for the timeline we believed. And the most terrifying part, we still don't know what they are. Are they the missing link between stars and quasars? Are they fossils of forgotten physics? Or are they something so alien that we haven't yet invented the language to describe them? What James Webb has revealed is not just the depth of space, but the depth of our ignorance. And in those impossible little red dots, faintly glowing in silence, the universe seems to whisper one chilling truth: you don't know me yet.
Just as Miguel considered giving up for the night, a familiar figure appeared on the screen. It was Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. The cardinal moved with purpose, completely unaware of the camera capturing his every action. What happened next left Father Miguel frozen in his chair, his heart racing in disbelief. 2 weeks earlier, the town was alive with excitement. Word had spread quickly, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle was coming to visit their parish. The news ignited a spark of anticipation in everyone, from the devout churchgoers to those who rarely set foot inside. His reputation for compassion and humility had reached far beyond the church walls, making him a figure admired by all. The days leading up to his arrival were a flurry of preparation. The pews were polished, the courtyard swept clean, and decorations carefully arranged to honor such a distinguished guest. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that everybody has a wonderful start of the new ecclesiastical year. Welcome back to St. Sophia's. Today we're here with the help of Cosmos Philly to show you what's the newest thing going on here at St. Sophia in terms of our church, Father Miguel announced. Families began arriving hours before the service, eager to secure a spot close enough to see the cardinal in person. The church filled quickly, and soon even the courtyard overflowed with people craning their necks for a glimpse of the man whose presence seemed to carry a sense of hope. Father Miguel stood by the main entrance, fidgeting with his collar. Despite the cool evening breeze, his palms were damp with nerves. He had met Cardinal Tagle before, but this occasion felt different, more significant. The burden of the recent burglaries weighed on the parish, and Miguel silently prayed that the cardinal's visit might bring some much-needed relief. The sound of gravel crunching under tires signaled the arrival of the sleek black car. Miguel took a deep breath and stepped forward as the vehicle came to a stop. The cardinal emerged, offering a signature warm smile and a slight bow to the gathered crowd. Your Eminence, Miguel greeted, bowing deeply. The cardinal's presence seemed to ripple through the crowd like a wave of calm. Parishioners who had been tense and reserved due to the recent crimes now greeted each other with warmth and optimism. It was as if his arrival alone had lifted their spirits. Inside the church, the cardinal moved through the sea of people with ease and grace. He shook hands, offered blessings, and spoke to each person with genuine interest, making them feel seen and valued. Father Miguel watched from the edge of the crowd, filled with admiration. Despite his high rank, Cardinal Tagle carried himself with the humility of a servant. His charisma was as natural as the air he breathed. Yet as Miguel observed, something caught his eye. Clara, the church housekeeper, stood near the side aisle. Normally quiet and composed, she seemed unusually tense. Her hands fidgeted nervously, and she kept glancing toward the cardinal with an expression Miguel couldn't quite place. Was it fear, concern, or something else entirely? It was subtle, but it unsettled him enough to make a mental note to speak with her later. For now, though, the focus remained on the cardinal and the transformative energy his visit brought to the parish. Little did Miguel know, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew. Clara lingered in the shadows near the sacristy, her hands clasped tightly together. Her gaze flitted nervously toward Cardinal Tagle, her posture rigid and tense as though she were bracing herself for a moment she dreaded. When the cardinal finally moved closer, she hesitated for a brief second before stepping forward. In a hushed tone, she whispered something to him, her words inaudible from where Father Miguel stood. The cardinal nodded slightly in response, his face a mask of calm, revealing nothing of the exchange. Without another word, Clara turned and exited the room abruptly, her pale face etched with emotion Miguel couldn't quite decipher, fear perhaps, or guilt. Whatever it was, it unsettled him. Miguel's stomach churned as he tried to make sense of what he had just witnessed. Clara had always been composed and discreet, never drawing attention to herself. Yet here she was, behaving in a way that seemed entirely out of character, especially in the presence of someone as respected and revered as Cardinal Tagle. Miguel attempted to brush off his unease, chalking it up to nerves over the day's important events, but the memory of Clara's fleeting words and the Cardinal's cryptic response refused to leave him. A nagging suspicion gnawed at the edges of his mind, hinting that their interaction carried a significance he couldn't yet grasp. As the evening progressed, Miguel tried his best to focus on his duties, greeting parishioners and ensuring the Cardinal's visit unfolded smoothly. Still, his thoughts kept circling back to Clara. What could she have said to the Cardinal? Why had she appeared so rattled? Miguel pushed these questions aside, determined not to let his own overthinking spoil what should have been a joyous occasion. It was nearing midnight when the shrill buzz of Miguel's phone shattered the silence of his modest bedroom. Startled, he fumbled for the device on his nightstand, squinting at the screen through blurry eyes. The caller ID displayed the name of the security company responsible for monitoring the recently installed cameras at the church. A cold knot of anxiety formed in. After weeks of uneventful surveillance, a call at this hour could only mean one thing: trouble. Father Miguel, came the operator's calm yet urgent voice. We detected some unusual activity on the church premises. You may want to review the footage from camera 3 near the east corridor. Miguel hung up, his heart pounding. Pulling on a jacket over his nightclothes, he hurried toward the small office where the security monitors were housed. The church was eerily silent, its long corridors cloaked in shadows. Moonlight filtered through the stained glass windows, casting fractured colors onto the floor, but the beauty of the scene did little to ease Miguel's growing unease. Once seated in the glow of the monitors, Miguel navigated to the footage from earlier in the evening. At first, the screen displayed nothing out of the ordinary: empty hallways, locked doors, and a stillness that always settled over the church after hours. But as the timestamp crept past 11 p.m., a figure emerged from the shadows, its movements deliberate and cautious. Miguel's breath caught in his throat. The figure stepped further into the frame, and the dim light revealed the unmistakable form of Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. Miguel leaned closer to the screen, his pulse quickening. The Cardinal's movements were deliberate, almost furtive, as though he were wary of being seen. He paused every few steps to glance over his shoulder, scanning the darkness with a wariness that didn't match the composed, benevolent man Miguel had seen earlier that day. Miguel's chest tightened as he watched the footage unfold. What was the Cardinal doing wandering the church at this hour? The more Miguel watched, the more troubling the scene became. The Cardinal's actions were precise, almost as if he were searching for something, or someone. Miguel couldn't shake the feeling that there was far more to this late-night excursion than met the eye. And as the footage continued, what he saw next left him gripping the edge of the desk, his unease now fully transformed into alarm. As Cardinal Tagle approached Clara's quarters, he paused just outside her door. His hand hovered over the doorknob, hesitating for a brief moment. He glanced down the dimly lit hallway one last time, ensuring no one was watching. Satisfied that he was alone, he turned the knob and slipped inside, disappearing into the room. Father Miguel sat frozen, his eyes fixed on the monitor, his mind racing, struggling to reconcile the image of the respected and revered Cardinal with a man moving so covertly. A wave of doubt and confusion washed over him. His first instinct was to give the cardinal the benefit of the doubt. Surely there had to be an innocent explanation for his actions. But the secrecy, the cautious glances over his shoulder, and the odd timing, all of it gnawed at Miguel's resolve. He replayed the footage, scrutinizing every detail. The cardinal's movements were deliberate, almost calculated. His behavior wasn't just cautious, it was methodical. Miguel leaned back in his chair, his unease growing with each passing second. The late hour and the cardinal's choice to visit Clara's room of all places didn't make sense. What could he be doing in Clara's room? Miguel muttered to himself.
What happened? The Cosby Show was a groundbreaking series that defined a generation, but its sudden disappearance from the airwaves left many puzzled. What led to the iconic show's abrupt end? From Bill Cosby's personal scandals to broader societal shifts, here's a look at the real reasons behind the Cosby Show's fall from TV screens. Bill Cosby's reign as America's dad once seemed untouchable, but it came crashing down amidst decades of allegations that forever altered his legacy. For years, he was a symbol of family values, comedy brilliance, and cultural progress. But that image disintegrated when accusations of misconduct finally broke into the mainstream. The fall was as shocking as it was messy, because this wasn't just about one man's reputation collapsing. It was about the erasure of one of television's most groundbreaking shows, a sitcom that had reshaped American culture and opened doors for representation on screen. The Cosby Show wasn't canceled because of poor ratings, creative burnout, or waning audience interest. It was erased because the man who created it, wrote it, and starred as its heart became a walking scandal. How did Bill Cosby, once celebrated as the ideal father figure, turn into one of the most controversial figures in pop culture history? The truth, as with most stories of power and fame, begins with a perfectly looking lie. When The Cosby Show first aired in 1984, it was unlike anything else on television. The show introduced audiences to the Huxtables, an upper-middle-class African-American family living in New York. Cliff Huxtable, played by Cosby himself, was a doctor. Claire, his wife, was a lawyer, and their 5 children filled the home with humor, conflicts, and relatable challenges. For millions of viewers, this family wasn't just entertaining, they were aspirational. The Cosby Show flipped the script on how black families were portrayed on television. Prior to its debut, most depictions leaned on stereotypes, poverty, or hardship. The Huxtables were different. Educated, professional, happy, and thriving in a comfortable home. Their success and intelligence challenged ingrained assumptions and offered audiences a fresh picture of what a black family could look like on primetime TV. Cosby drew much of the show's inspiration from his own life and comedy career. His stand-up routines often centered on parenting, family life, and the everyday absurdities of raising children. He wanted the sitcom to make people laugh, but also to teach valuable lessons about responsibility, education, and family values. Early on, he considered making the parents hold working-class jobs like taxi driver or electrician, but he eventually elevated them to doctor and lawyer. This was more than just a creative choice. It was a statement. By giving the Huxtables prestigious professions, Cosby sent a message that black families could embody success and achievement on television in a way that mainstream America wasn't used to seeing. The show was filmed in New York, and exterior shots used a real house to create authenticity, which made audiences feel that the Huxtables could be a real family living in their neighborhood. Casting the family was equally critical. Cosby personally selected the actors with great care, ensuring they fit his vision of the ideal sitcom family. Whitney Houston was even considered for a role, but her music career took precedence. Vanessa Williams was also in the running, but her duties as Miss America kept her from joining. Eventually, the chosen cast became iconic. Sabrina Lubaugh as Sandra, the eldest, Lisa Bonet as the rebellious Denise, Malcolm Jamal Warner as Theo, the only son, Tempest Bledsoe as Vanessa, and Kesha Knight Pulliam as Rudy, the adorable youngest daughter. Their chemistry and dynamic made the Huxtables feel real, warm, and funny. The Cosby Show was an instant success. Within its first season, it skyrocketed in popularity and soon became the #1 show on television. For 4 or 5 consecutive years, it reigned at the top, a feat few shows in television history have achieved. Its influence spread far beyond American borders. International audiences embraced the Huxtables as well, many seeing for the first time a black family portrayed with such dignity, humor, and prosperity. The show won countless awards and accolades, and Cosby's portrayal of Cliff Huxtable became iconic, especially his trademark colorful sweaters, which became a cultural trend of their own. Families tuned in weekly, not just for laughs, but also for lessons on education, responsibility, and resilience. The sitcom had become more than entertainment. It was a cultural milestone. Yet, behind the laughter and polished family image, shadows loomed. Decades later, allegations against Bill Cosby began to surface, painting a picture far different from the beloved father figure he portrayed on screen. Starting in the early 2000s, women began coming forward, accusing Cosby of sexual misconduct. They claimed he had drugged and assaulted them, some accounts going back decades. At first, many dismissed the accusations or didn't take them seriously. Cosby's clean image and towering reputation seemed untouchable. But the tide turned in 2014 when comedian Hannibal Buress referenced Cosby's alleged crimes in a stand-up routine. The clip went viral, reigniting public discussion and emboldening more women to share their stories. Soon, more than 60 women had come forward with strikingly similar accounts, sparking a cultural reckoning. By 2015, Cosby faced criminal charges connected to a 2004 case. His first trial ended without a verdict, but in 2018, he was convicted of aggravated indecent assault and sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison. The conviction sent shock waves through the entertainment world. Here was a man once hailed as the epitome of family values, now revealed as a predator. In 2021, Cosby's conviction was overturned on a legal technicality, and he was released. Still, the damage was done. His reputation was irreparably shattered, and the allegations continued to overshadow any contributions he had made to entertainment. For many, the crimes could never be separated from the art. The fallout spread to The Cosby Show. Once a staple in syndication, beloved by generations, it was suddenly toxic. Television networks pulled reruns, streaming platforms scrubbed episodes, and the show became nearly impossible to find legally. A sitcom that had once represented cultural progress now carried the stain of its creator's misconduct. For the cast, this meant not only emotional disillusionment, but also financial loss. Syndication royalties that actors depended on dried up almost overnight, forcing some into difficult situations. But Cosby's crimes weren't the only controversies tied to the show. Even at the height of its success, tensions simmered behind the scenes. Lisa Bonet, who played Denise, often clashed with Cosby. Creative, independent, and unafraid to push boundaries, she resisted his control. Her photo shoots for adult magazines and her starring role in the provocative film Angel Heart infuriated Cosby, who wanted to maintain a wholesome image for the show. Their strained relationship eventually led to Bonet being written into a spin-off, A Different World. Though marketed as Denise's college journey, many suspected the real reason was Cosby wanting her off the main show. Later, Bonet reflected that she had always felt something was off about Cosby, though she hadn't fully understood why at the time. Other cast members also revealed troubling dynamics. Joseph C. Phillips, who played Denise's husband, alleged that everyone on set knew about Cosby's infidelities. While not everyone knew the full extent of his misconduct, whispers and rumors circulated long before the public reckoning. For many, this hindsight made the show's wholesome facade feel even more artificial. The cast's lives after the show varied widely, with some facing struggles that became tabloid fodder. Gary Owens, who played Elvin, was photographed working at a Trader Joe's years after the show ended. Critics mocked him, but the acting community rallied to his defense, pointing out the instability of the profession and the fact that honest work should never be shamed. Sabrina Luboff expressed dissatisfaction with her role as Sandra, feeling underutilized by the writers. Malcolm Jamal Warner struggled with the direction of his later sitcom Malcolm and Eddie, which he criticized for perpetuating racial stereotypes. Kesha Knight Pulliam, beloved as Rudy, faced about race. And Stacey Dash, who appeared in a minor role, faced her own controversies with arrests and polarizing political statements. Lisa Bonet's post-show life also made headlines, particularly her high-profile marriage to musician Lenny Kravitz and the upbringing of their daughter Zoe Kravitz, who would go on to become a star in her own right. Despite all the turmoil, The Cosby Show's cultural significance cannot be denied. At the time of its airing, it broke barriers in how Black families were represented on television. It shifted perceptions, proving that sitcoms could portray Black households as educated, affluent, and aspirational. Its influence paved the way for later shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Blackish, which built on the legacy of representation. The show also addressed real issues like education, parenting, and adolescent struggles, packaging them in humor that resonated with audiences across racial and cultural lines. And yet, its legacy remains complicated. On one hand, it remains a groundbreaking work that reshaped. While most car companies were busy with their old models and marketing strategies, Tesla engineers were quietly working on a new technology behind the scenes. This is not just a new engine. It is a solid indication that Tesla has already started the race for the coming years. Elon Musk has done it again, a blast that opens the doors to the future. This is not a minor technological advancement. This is a leap that can beat the competition right from the start. A motor so smart, so powerful, and so precise that many experts are calling it technology from time travel. This new electric motor is faster, lighter, and more energy efficient than ever before. No noise, no delay. This system responds instantly, making the driving experience smoother and more controlled than ever before. Tesla has optimized the motor through its design and software integration so that it can produce more output with less energy. And perhaps this is the point where Tesla has jumped miles ahead of the rest. But the question arises, how did Tesla do this? What is the technology behind this? And what will it change? It begins with which not only changed the car, it changed the game. Before moving on, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you get every important information related to it is clear that the world is going through a huge change. Electric cars are now replacing petrol and diesel. EV, which was once considered just an experiment, is now slowly becoming the need and priority of every country. And Elon Musk has also said the same thing many times in his interviews. The future belongs to electric vehicles. Today, America, Europe, China, India, every big country is investing heavily in the EV industry. Governments are giving subsidies. Companies are launching new models, and the charging infrastructure is being strengthened. By 2030, many countries plan to completely stop petrol and diesel cars. In such a situation, it is clear that EV is not just an option, but has become a need of the times to come. Be it China's BYD, America's Tesla, or India's Tata, all companies have entered the market with new models of EV. And most importantly, now these vehicles are not only better for the environment, but are also proving to be beneficial for the common people due to long range, low maintenance, and economical running costs. Talking about Tesla, Elon Musk started this whole revolution. And now when the whole market is shifting towards EV, Tesla is leading it. It is clear the era of EV has begun. And if you have not taken this change seriously till now, then you can be left behind in the coming future. In the coming few years, only those companies, governments, and people who will adopt this change quickly will be able to stay in this race. Tesla has been at the forefront of electric vehicle technology for the past several years. But this time, the step taken is not just moving forward. but a jump that will surprise the entire industry. Elon Musk and his engineering team have introduced a new type of electric motor that can give a completely new turn to the current race of EVs. The most important part of this new motor is its carbon-wrapped rotor. Although this word may sound technical, its benefits are so extraordinary that every expert is now paying attention to it. Traditional motors have metal parts which heat up, expand, and wear out over time. This is the reason why there is a limit on their performance, be it speed or power. But the carbon fiber rotor used in this new motor of Tesla breaks all these limitations. It can rotate very fast, yet neither heats up nor bends, nor wears out quickly. Its stability is so strong that it can operate at speeds of over 20,000 revolutions per minute, without breaking down or overheating. This figure is much higher than normal high-performance motors, which often begin to falter when they reach around 16,000 revolutions per minute. This time Tesla has made such an improvement in motor technology that can give a new standard to the entire EV industry. This is not just an upgrade of an existing system, but a design that changes both the construction and performance of the motor. The biggest advantage of this new motor is that it is faster, lighter, and more durable than before. It gives more torque with less energy consumption, and it can work continuously for a long time. Less rare metals have been used in its manufacture, which reduces its cost and makes it easier to produce on a large scale. This aspect is especially important because with this the company can speed up production, which is necessary for the rapidly increasing graph of EV demand. While other companies are still engaged in improving traditional motor technologies, Tesla has prepared for the next generation with this new design. Due to this, Tesla gets an edge not only in terms of performance, but also in production cost and scalability. Acceleration figures are also impressive. Cars equipped with the new motor can accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 2 seconds. This is not just a demonstration of acceleration, but an example of the technical control and balance that Tesla brings to its systems. This new motor from Tesla brings a solution that directly addresses the major problems that have long been associated with electric vehicles, especially battery consumption and limited range. This motor does not drain the battery as fast as any older performance model, but instead uses energy more efficiently. This Tesla technology is extremely balanced. It delivers more power with less energy loss. Also, its design is such that it keeps the temperature under control without the need for a heavy cooling system. Made of lightweight carbon fiber, this motor makes the whole car run more stable, quieter, and smoother than before. The biggest question in the EV segment has always been, can the car travel long distances without frequent charging? This motor from Tesla eliminates this concern to a large extent. It delivers high performance, but keeps the battery consumption under control. This means fewer charging breaks, longer range, and less stress on the battery. With this, driving is not just an experience, but a part of confidence. Now, users don't have to choose between speed and utility. They get both without any compromise. And the most interesting part is that Tesla has also kept cost in mind while developing this technology. The motor has been simplified and uses fewer rare metals, which reduces manufacturing costs. This directly benefits the consumer in the form of lower prices or better profits for the company. While other companies are still trying to find this balance, Tesla has already achieved it and is now moving towards making it the new industry standard. The race for electric vehicles was not going to stop so soon. The world's big companies like Ford, GM, Toyota, and Volkswagen had invested heavily to establish their hold in the EV segment. At the same time, new startups like Lucid and Rivian entered the market with fresh ideas and technology. Companies like China's BYD were also showing a steady increase in sales figures. For a time, it seemed that Tesla's grip might loosen. But then Tesla introduced its new carbon EVs from plants that were originally built for petrol-diesel vehicles. Tesla's plants have been designed for electric vehicles from the beginning. Not only that, where other companies rely on external suppliers for batteries and motors, Tesla makes its batteries and now motors in-house. This gives the company control not only over cost, but also over the speed and quality of production. As for startups, Lucid has launched a fast sedan, but its price and limited availability put it out of reach for the average consumer. Rivian's trucks are capable, but production delays and rising costs are holding them back. These companies have innovation, but neither the production capacity nor the speed of scale of Tesla today. While other companies are looking for a stable model, Tesla is already ready for the next leap. BYD may be the world's largest EV seller today, but a large part of its success is based on low-cost models from China. When it comes to technology, driving range, and performance, Tesla is still a step ahead. And the real difference is when we talk about software. Tesla's full self-driving, FSD, system is constantly improving. It's not just code. It's training itself every day by taking data from vehicles on the road around the world. So far, the system has accumulated millions of miles of experience, which no other automaker has. This is where the difference lies. While other companies are trying to stay afloat in the EV market, Tesla is changing the rules of the game. Batteries and AI, Tesla's real strength. Tesla knows that a great motor is incomplete without the right battery. It's with this thought in mind that Tesla developed its next generation battery, the 4680 cell. These batteries store more energy, charge faster, and last longer. The new battery design increases range without adding weight to the car. It also features improved cooling, which prevents the battery from heating up. Also, these cells work in perfect harmony with Tesla's new carbon wrap motor, giving the car a strong, durable, and efficient power system. Tesla is also quietly making big leaps in AI. Where other companies still rely on mapping systems and LiDAR, Tesla's system tries to learn like a human. It is vision-based. It sees through the camera, learns from experience, and constantly updates itself. Every Tesla car is not just a vehicle. It's a walking data center. Every time a Tesla drives down the road, it collects information from the environment around it, traffic patterns, signal responses, driver behavior, and thousands of other inputs. This data is sent directly to Tesla's systems where it's used to improve AI models. The result is that the more Tesla cars on the road, the more real-world data is collected and the faster Tesla's self-driving technology improves. That's why Tesla's autonomous features get better every week. Even while your car is parked in the garage, it continues to gain new capabilities through software updates. Now, imagine when this intelligent system is connected to Tesla's new generation of batteries and motors, which are more efficient, longer-lasting, and more durable. It's not just a vehicle, it's an entire technology platform. Now, let's talk about Tesla's manufacturing strategy. While other companies are struggling with limited supply chains and production delays, Tesla is constantly building plants in new markets. Starting with Shanghai, gigafactories are now active in Berlin, Austin, Texas, and several other locations. What's special about these plants is their design where measures like robotic automation, casting technology, and vertical integration in production are making cars in less time, at a lower cost, and with better quality. Tesla didn't just make faster cars, it changed the process of making cars. And that's why while competitors are still solving basic problems, Tesla has built an entire ecosystem, one that is outpacing the entire industry. In Europe, Tesla is now challenging long-established players like Volkswagen on their home turf. In the most competitive market like China, Tesla is still holding its ground, especially in the premium segment. In the US, it is already the biggest player in the EV market. But Tesla's strategy is not limited to this. It is now focused on emerging markets like India, the Middle East, and South America. Tesla understands that it is better to shape the future than to wait for it. That is why it is focusing on building early trust and a strong brand presence in these new regions before local companies are firmly established. Another big advantage that sets Tesla apart from others is its direct-to-consumer model. There are no dealerships, no additional middlemen. Customers order the car online. Delivery is done directly at home, and periodic software updates keep the vehicle constantly improving. The whole system is simple, straightforward, and under Tesla's control, helping to reduce costs and enhance the customer experience. While traditional automakers still struggle with third-party logistics and antiquated retail structures, Tesla is moving faster and clearer than ever before. Tesla is no longer just a car manufacturer. It's a brand that's transforming every level. Technology, production, sales, and customer service. Tesla isn't waiting for the future. It's already creating it. The future is set, and Tesla has already figured out the direction. Tesla's new motor is not just an engineering feat. It's a clear sign that the company has moved beyond conventional thinking in the automobile industry. While other companies are either focusing on improving performance or struggling to reduce costs, Tesla has done solid work on both fronts simultaneously, and the result. The biggest feature of this motor is that it not only makes the car faster, but also makes it lighter, more durable, and energy efficient. It solves problems that have been slowing down the EV industry so far: overheating, charging time, and limited range. But the story doesn't end there. Elon Musk's plan is much bigger than a car. Tesla is now creating an ecosystem in which energy production, storage, vehicles, and AI all work under one vision: solar roofs, power walls, gigafactories, and autopilot systems. These are not just individual products, but part of an integrated system that is shaping the clean, efficient, and smart transportation of the future. Now imagine a world where Tesla cars charge themselves, learn from data continuously, and transport goods and passengers without noise or pollution. And not just in metro cities, but in villages, off-grid areas, in every corner. In fact, Tesla is not just making cars. It is building the infrastructure on which the smart world of the next century will run. It is not just changing today's competition. It is setting the standard for years to come and other companies. Maybe they too will move in Tesla's direction someday. But by then Tesla may have moved ahead and created something that no one can even imagine today. Because this motor is not the end. It is the beginning of a journey that Tesla has already taken far ahead. Who is the king of the EV market in 2025? If we ask the question in 2025 that who is the real king of the electric vehicle, i.e. EV market, then the answer is simple: BYD. This Chinese company is now dominating the EV industry not only in the domestic market, but also globally. By the first quarter of 2025, BYD sold more than 17 lakh electric cars, which is much more than Tesla's approximately 14.5 lakh units. These figures clearly show that BYD is now at the forefront in terms of sales. Tesla may still be strong in technology and brand image, but BYD has overtaken it in the race for market share. The biggest reason for BYD's success has been its strategy to provide more options at a lower price. The company has launched many such models for the small and middle class, which are affordable in price, but strong in BYD makes its own batteries, which keeps it in control of production costs. On the other hand, Tesla has focused more on technology, self-driving features, and premium segment. This means that both companies are trying to establish their dominance in the market through different paths. In today's EV race, just making a good car is not enough. If a company wants to survive in the global market for a long time, then it has to constantly work on 4 things: better battery technology, strong charging network, affordable models, and smart software features. Tesla already has a stronghold in all these 4 areas, while BYD is now rapidly moving in the same direction. Other companies like Volkswagen, Hyundai, and Ford are also in this race, but at the moment they are either facing production challenges or have not been able to build enough trust in the market. So the picture for 2025 is clear. BYD is number 1 in terms of market share, but Tesla still has a very strong hold in terms of technological edge and innovation. In the future, the company that will be able to create the right balance of these 2 things will be called the real king of the EV market. Tesla's new motor technology is a game changer. It is not only lighter and more efficient, but is also a step ahead of BYD's existing motors in performance. While BYD still focuses on volume and affordable segments, Tesla is leading the future race on the strength of technology and smart systems. The new motor can make Tesla number 1 again with features like faster charging, longer range, and better temperature control. If you want to be the first to get every new update in the EV world, then definitely subscribe to our channel. Tesla versus the world. A single company taking on the giants. When it comes to electric vehicles today, many of the world's leading companies have jumped into this race. Be it China's BYD or Japan's Toyota, everyone wants to dominate the EV market. But at such a time, there is one company that is competing with everyone alone, and that is Tesla. Not only is Tesla competing, but in many cases it is also getting ahead of these giant companies. The question is, what is Tesla doing that other companies are not able to do? In fact, Tesla believed in EV at a time when other companies considered it just an experiment. Elon Musk had seen the future. He understood that the era of petrol diesel was about to end. When other companies were stuck on transitional models like hybrid or micro-E, Tesla had directly shifted to a fully electric platform. This early lead gives Tesla a distinct identity today. Tesla's biggest strength is its software and innovation. When you buy a Tesla, you don't just buy a car. You buy a moving technology platform. It has features ranging from autopilot to over-the-air updates. Just like mobile phones get updates, Tesla's vehicles also keep getting new features through updates. This is an understanding of technology that BYD do not have at that level yet. Another special thing is Tesla's battery technology. The company is constantly researching new batteries, whether it is 4,680 cells or casting frame technology. Through this, Tesla is not only reducing the cost, but also increasing the performance and range of the vehicles. On the other hand, BYD has been making its mark through Blade batteries so far, but Tesla seems to be ahead in technology scaling. Tesla's global network is also a big strength of its. Tesla has set up its gigafactories in countries like Europe, America, and now India, so that the production of vehicles can be done faster. BYD is also building factories in Europe and Thailand, but it is not easy to beat Tesla in global branding and infrastructure. If we talk about charging infrastructure, Tesla has already built the supercharger network. This is a fast charging system that every Tesla car can access. Other companies are still engaged in setting up this network. This is the reason why Tesla's long drive range cars have become the first choice of travelers. Not only this, Tesla has a brand personality, Elon Musk. His thinking, his words, and his presence on social media make Tesla a cool brand. People see Tesla not just as a car, but as a symbol of future thinking. Other companies have not been able to make this emotional connection yet. However, it is also true that BYD cars are cheaper and are selling more in developing countries. But Tesla has now started working on cheaper models like the Model 2, which will cost less than $25,000. This means that the market that BYD occupies today will be within Tesla's range in the coming years, and then the competition will become even more exciting. Another important aspect is Tesla's self-sustainable vision. The company is not just making cars, but is also developing solar panels, power walls, and energy storage systems. That is, their goal is to create an ecosystem in which energy is produced and used by itself. This thinking is completely different from the rest, and it will take time for others to adopt it. BYD's efforts are reasonable, and it also has strong domestic support from China. But if we talk about customer trust at the international level, Tesla still tops the list. This is the reason why whenever someone thinks of buying a new EV, the first choice is often Tesla, even if he has other options. Tesla is steadily introducing robotics, 3D casting, and AI-driven manufacturing to its factories. All this is happening at a time when other companies still rely on traditional assembly lines. The benefits of this.
Voyager 2 was launched on August 20th, 1977, part of a mission so ambitious it bordered on insanity. A spacecraft with less memory than a modern watch, powered by less than 23 watts of radio strength. Built not to return, but to fly forever. It was sent to explore the gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and then to continue into the unknown. What it achieved defied all expectations. It captured storms the size of Earth, rings we never knew existed, and icy moons with active geysers. It even revealed dynamic atmospheres and mysterious magnetic fields on worlds we had only ever seen as dots in the sky. But Voyager 2 wasn't just sending back pictures, it was changing the way we saw the universe. After its grand tour, the probe kept going, breaking past the heliosphere and into interstellar space in 2018. That boundary, the heliopause, was once considered the limit of the sun's influence. Voyager 2 revealed it was not a wall, but a membrane, a shifting, writhing edge full of turbulence, radiation, and invisible forces that led into the great dark beyond. And as it crossed that threshold, the rules began to change. For decades, Voyager 2 whispered home, sending back fragile signals, each one a miracle of endurance, cutting through billions of kilometers of emptiness. But in March 2020, NASA's Deep Space Network lost contact. At first, it was explained as routine maintenance at the Goldstone 70M antenna. But when contact wasn't reestablished, a deeper fear crept in. Maybe Voyager had died. Maybe the darkness had finally taken it. Then, in October 2020, something unthinkable happened. Engineers sent a command to Voyager 2, and it replied perfectly, as if nothing had ever happened. Not just a ping, but a full transmission. The spacecraft had executed the command, updated its navigation, and adjusted orientation without error. After nearly half a year adrift in interstellar silence, it was suddenly responsive. Precise. Alive. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was what came next, a sequence of telemetry that, according to internal logs, Voyager should never have been capable of generating. Legacy systems had activated. Data came from instruments long considered dormant. Subsystems that hadn't been accessed since the 1980s returned status reports. It was as if something had awakened the ship, or someone. Engineers were stunned. The data stream wasn't just old, it was layered. Signals encoded in frequencies Voyager hadn't used in decades appeared to contain patterns, repetitions, echo pulses, binary signatures not previously cataloged. NASA's initial explanation was a system loop triggered by radiation interference. But independent experts noticed something else. Embedded in the signal were fragments of its own code base, but in recursive form. Self-referencing instructions. Like a digital mirror. Voyager wasn't just sending data, it was transmitting itself. Some believed it was a survival reflex, a last attempt to preserve its identity before final shutdown. Others suggested something more chilling, that Voyager had encountered an external force, one that accessed its memory, read its systems, and reflected them back in altered form. Like an echo, or a reply. If that's true, then the message wasn't just from Voyager. It was from whatever Voyager had passed through, or contacted. Scientists at NASA remain officially silent on this speculation. But in internal documents leaked by former contractors, one phrase was repeated again and again: unknown interaction detected. We've always imagined space as a void, cold, empty, silent. But the Voyager missions have revealed something else. That space, even in its most remote corners, is not dead. It's active. It pushes back radiation, magnetic fields, high-energy particles, structures that behave like currents and walls. As if interstellar space has shape and movement we cannot yet map. Voyager 2's return message, its impossible signal, is not a conclusion. It's a beginning. It confirms what many have feared but few dared say aloud, that something out there is watching. Not necessarily in the way we imagine, aliens or intelligence, but in a more subtle, more disturbing sense. That the universe isn't passive. That it reacts. And maybe, just maybe, it has been waiting. Voyager 2's journey is far from over. But its voice may soon fade forever. Before that happens, scientists are racing to extract every last byte of information from its final transmission. Because buried within that data may lie the proof that the boundary we thought separated us from the unknown was never real at all. As NASA's analysts continued decoding the data packet sent by Voyager 2, they encountered a portion of telemetry that raised red flags, not only for its content but for its timing. The packet had been transmitted just before the probe's brief silence, and it contained anomalies that defied the current behavior models of interstellar plasma and magnetic field distribution. The patterns were too organized, too periodic, and too strong. One report mentioned localized pressure differentials inconsistent with standard heliosheath turbulence, a dry, technical phrase that in plain language suggests something was pressing, intentionally or not, against Voyager 2's environment. Some proposed it could be gravitational wake from a nearby but undetected object. Others hinted that the probe may have passed through an artificially stabilized zone, a shell or corridor of some unknown origin. The idea that a machine might be influenced, not infected, but transformed by its interaction with the cosmos is no longer a fringe theory. it raises troubling questions. If the universe can imprint itself on our technology, what else could be listening? Or changing? Inside Mission Control, a new protocol was initiated without public announcement. Voyager 2's signal is now monitored by a select team, separate from general NASA operations. Why? Because the data stream is no longer considered just scientific. It's unpredictable. Engineers report that signal strength fluctuates erratically, not in decay, but in bursts, as if responding to solar activity that isn't occurring. Pulse intervals have begun to repeat themselves, echoing telemetry from Voyager 1 years earlier, but in reverse order. Some believe the probes may be relaying data through a medium we don't yet understand, bouncing information across time-delayed corridors of space. Others warn this might represent a kind of cosmic resonance, triggered not by mechanical failure but by proximity to a force field, gravitational anomaly, or unknown intelligence. The team assigned to monitor these signals has been instructed not to comment publicly, and internal communications have been rerouted through encrypted systems. A memo leaked online simply said, "Maintain position. Do not respond unless instructed." As if someone, or something, might answer. As Voyager 2 drifts deeper into interstellar space, the data it sends becomes more than information, it becomes a mirror. Not of the cosmos, but of us. For the first time in human history, a machine built by our species has entered a domain we cannot visit, cannot see, and now may not understand. The fear isn't that Voyager has found something alien. It's that it's found something ancient. Something not made of matter or metal, but of space itself, a structure of the universe that reacts to motion, to mass, maybe even to memory. If that's true, Voyager hasn't just explored the cosmos, it's become part of it. A relay, a key, or a trigger for something older than stars. The final message it sent wasn't a conclusion. It was a threat. And once crossed, there may be no way back. We built it to leave Earth, and it did. But now, it may have found something that never wanted to be found. Something that speaks without speaking, and waits without moving. Voyager 2 was never meant to come back. It was never meant to be heard from again. It was a whisper into the unknown, a one-way signal cast into eternity. But somehow, it spoke. Not with words, not even with code as we understand it, but with something more terrifying, more beautiful, and more impossible. A reply that feels conscious. What the probe has encountered is still undefined, a force, a structure, a reaction, perhaps even a form of communication that doesn't use language at all, but rhythm, radiation, gravity itself. What we once saw as emptiness may now be something else entirely, a field of awareness woven into the fabric of space. Voyager may second not have simply crossed a boundary. It may have triggered something, woken something, or revealed a cosmic truth we were never meant to perceive. We thought we were alone.
May 27, 1942. The basement of the old administration building, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Lieutenant Commander Thomas Deere stared at the 5-digit number groups covering his desk, his eyes burning from another marathon shift in the windowless dungeon that housed Station Hypo. The Benzedrine tablets kept him awake, but they couldn't stop the weight of responsibility pressing down on every decision. The pencil in his hand trembled slightly as he made another notation on the worksheet before him. Beside him, stacks of IBM punch cards towered like monuments to months of painstaking work. Each card represented hours of analysis, countless cross-references, and the accumulated knowledge of a team pushed beyond normal human limits. Everything depended on what these numbers meant. Everything: the war, the Pacific Fleet, thousands of American lives hanging in the balance. He reached for another punch card from the stack beside him, comparing code groups against the patterns his team had painstakingly assembled over 6 months of brutal work. In a war room 3 floors above, Admiral Chester Nimitz waited for an answer that would determine whether he gambled his last 3 aircraft carriers against the Japanese armada that outnumbered him in every category of ship. The stakes couldn't be higher. After Pearl Harbor, after months of defeats across the Pacific, this might be America's only chance to stop Japanese expansion. One mistake, one misread code group, one incorrect assumption, and the war in the Pacific could be lost before summer ended. Deere's fingers moved across the IBM card sorter, searching for a pattern that might reveal the enemy's intentions. His colleague, Commander Joseph Rockefeller, stood nearby in his characteristic bathrobe and slippers, having not left his underground bunker for days. The bathrobe wasn't eccentric behavior, though many would later characterize it that way. The basement was stifling, inadequately ventilated, and the heat from the IBM machines made proper uniforms unbearable. Rockefeller's approach was purely practical. Results mattered more than military protocol in this cramped, sweaty workspace, where the fate of nations was being decided by men hunched over code sheets and punch cards. Neither man knew that in the next week their work would change the course of World War II. The message intercepts were clear about one thing: the Imperial Japanese Navy was planning the largest operation since Pearl Harbor. For fleet carriers, dozens of supporting warships, and hundreds of the world's most experienced naval aviators were converging on a target designated by 2 letters in the Japanese code, AF. The question that haunted every man in that basement dungeon was simple but devastating. What was AF? Where would the Japanese strike next? Get it wrong, and America would lose the war in the Pacific before summer ended. The mathematics of potential disaster were brutally simple. Japan possessed 10 fleet carriers. America had 3 left in the Pacific, and one of those, Yorktown, was badly damaged from the Battle of the Coral Sea just weeks earlier. If Nimitz positioned his carriers in the wrong place, if Station Hypo's analysis proved incorrect, the Japanese would achieve what Pearl Harbor had failed to accomplish: the complete destruction of American naval power in the Pacific. The transformation had begun 6 months earlier on a morning that would forever change both nations. December 7, 1941, dawned bright and peaceful across the Hawaiian Islands. Families were preparing for church services. Sailors aboard the battleships moored at Pearl Harbor were eating breakfast or catching a few extra hours of sleep on what should have been a quiet Sunday morning.
Coincidentally is
The
also
Pacific
what
Fleet
Simon
sat at
uses to
anchor,
wash his
powerful
face.
but complacent,
Liquid gold.
unaware that a catastrophe was minutes away. At 7:55 that morning, peace died. 353 Japanese aircraft descended on Pearl Harbor in 2 devastating waves. The attack had been planned with meticulous precision by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, a brilliant strategist who understood both Japan's temporary advantage and America's long-term industrial superiority. His goal was simple: destroy the Pacific Fleet before America could fully mobilize its vast resources, give Japan 6 months to a year to consolidate its conquests across the Pacific and Southeast Asia, then negotiate peace from a position of strength. Within 2 hours, the results were catastrophic. 8 battleships lay sunk or damaged. The USS Arizona exploded with such force that over 1,100 men died in seconds, entombed forever in their ship. An 1,800-pound armor-piercing bomb had penetrated the forward magazine, triggering an explosion so massive it lifted the 30,000-ton warship out of the water. Men who witnessed it from other ships would never forget the sight of Arizona rising, breaking apart, and settling to the harbor bottom in less than 9 minutes. The USS Oklahoma rolled over after torpedo hits opened massive holes in her port side, trapping 429 sailors and Marines inside her hull. Some survived in air pockets for days, their desperate hammering on the hull audible to rescue workers who couldn't reach them in time. The USS West Virginia settled onto the harbor bottom with 106 crew members lost. Unlike Oklahoma and Arizona, West Virginia would eventually be raised, repaired, and returned to service, fighting in major Pacific battles. But on December 7, she was just another symbol of American vulnerability. Over 180 aircraft were destroyed on the ground, hangars and maintenance facilities demolished, 2,403 Americans dead, with the casualty breakdown revealing the comprehensive nature of the devastation. Navy 2008, Marine Corps 109, Army 218, and civilians 68. Another 1,000 were wounded. The Pacific Fleet, America's shield against Japanese expansion, lay shattered. Admiral Husband Kimmel, the Pacific Fleet commander, watched his command burn from the windows of his headquarters. As he stood there, still trying to comprehend the magnitude of the disaster, a spent bullet shattered the glass beside him. He reached down to pick up the deformed projectile, examined it for a long moment, then said quietly to an aide standing nearby that it would have been merciful if it had killed him. Kimmel understood that his career was over, that he would bear responsibility for America's greatest military disaster. Within days, he would be relieved of command, replaced by Admiral Chester Nimitz. His request for a court-martial to clear his name would be denied. The blame for Pearl Harbor would follow him to his grave. But the attack, devastating as it was, had missed the most valuable targets. All 3 Pacific Fleet carriers were absent that morning. The Enterprise was returning from delivering aircraft to Wake Island, delayed by weather that would prove providential. The Lexington was ferrying planes to Midway. The Saratoga sat in dry dock on the west coast, undergoing maintenance. Aircraft carriers, not battleships, would win this war, though few yet understood that fundamental shift in naval power. The era of the battleship as the dominant naval weapon was ending. The era of carrier warfare was beginning, and America, through a combination of luck and Japanese miscalculation, still possessed its carriers. The Japanese had also ignored Pearl Harbor's fuel storage tanks, massive installations holding millions of gallons of oil that kept the fleet operational. They bypassed the repair facilities, the dry docks, the submarine base, and the naval yard infrastructure. Japanese planners assumed these would be irrelevant after the fleet was destroyed. They were catastrophically wrong. These intact facilities would enable Pearl Harbor to serve as the staging base for America's Pacific counteroffensive. The submarines base that would devastate Japanese merchant shipping. The repair yards would resurrect damaged ships, including some the Japanese believed they had sunk. Within months, Pearl Harbor would transform from a symbol of defeat into a hive of activities supporting the war effort. In that basement dungeon at Pearl Harbor, Commander Joseph Rockefort inherited an impossible task. Station Hypo, the Navy's signals intelligence unit in Hawaii, had been tracking Japanese communications for years, but with limited success. The unit's official designation was Fleet Radio Unit Pacific, but everyone called it Station Hypo, using the phonetic code for H, standing for Hawaii, where one of the radio intercept towers was located. Before Pearl Harbor, they could read perhaps 10 to 15% of Japanese naval messages, and most of those only partially. It was enough to provide some intelligence value, but nowhere near enough to predict major operations like the Pearl Harbor attack. The main Japanese operational code, which American cryptanalysts designated JN-25, consisted of approximately 30,000 to 33,000 5-digit number groups in actual use, each representing a word or phrase. The system was ingenious in its complexity. Each 5-digit group from the codebook represented a specific word, phrase, or concept. To make decryption even more difficult, the Japanese super-enciphered these code groups using additive tables. Essentially, they encrypted the messages twice. First, the message was encoded using the codebook. Then, random 5-digit numbers from separate additive books were added to each code group using non-carrying addition. The result was a message that appeared to be random numbers resistant to frequency analysis and pattern recognition. Breaking this system required stripping off the additive layer through mathematical analysis, then determining the meaning of each 5-digit code group through painstaking analysis of usage patterns across thousands of intercepted messages. This direct communication worked brilliantly within the Pacific Theater. Intelligence reached the commander who needed it without bureaucratic delays, but it infuriated the Washington command structure. Rashford was bypassing the established chain of command, providing intelligence directly to the fleet commander instead of routing it through official channels and OP-20G for validation. From Washington's perspective, this violated proper procedure and undermined central control of intelligence analysis. From Rashford's perspective, war didn't wait for bureaucracy, and Admiral Nimitz needed intelligence immediately, not after it had been reviewed, second-guessed, and delayed by multiple levels of command in Washington. Admiral Ernest King, the chief of naval operations who commanded the entire U.S. Navy, trusted his staff in Washington more than this informal arrangement in Hawaii. King was a brilliant but difficult man known for his abrasive personality and his insistence on proper procedure. He disliked Rashford intensely, viewing him as insubordinate and overly confident. Commander John Redmond, who led OP-20G, resented Rashford's independence and insisted that all intelligence analysis should be centralized in Washington, where it could be properly controlled and coordinated. The disagreement wasn't just about bureaucratic territory.
When Alice
Lives
Ferrigno
hung in the
first stepped
balance.
onto Britain's Got
If
Talent
Nimitz
stage,
positioned his 3 carriers near Midway and the Japanese attacked somewhere else, he would lose both his ships and the actual target of the Japanese offensive. With only 3 carriers against Japan's
she
carrier fleet,
captured the hearts of
America
many.
couldn't afford to
Her
be
haunting
wrong
rendition
even
of-
once. The Pacific Fleet couldn't sustain another Pearl Harbor-level disaster. If those 3 carriers were sunk, nothing would stand between Japan and Hawaii except a few submarines and some land-based aircraft. The West Coast would be vulnerable.
Valentine
The
left
entire American position in the Pacific would collapse. Everything depended on determining what AF meant. Actually, it was Captain Wilfred J. Jasper Holmes, one of Station
judges.
HYPO's staff members, who conceived the brilliant idea that would settle the question. Holmes was a submariner by training who had been assigned to intelligence work. He had the practical mindset of an operational officer combined with an analytical mind. He suggested that Midway send an uncoded message reporting that their water desalination plant had broken down and the base was running short of fresh water. If the Japanese intercepted this message and then reported that AF was short of water, Station HYPO would have definitive proof that AF meant Midway. It was a simple ruse, almost too simple to work. But simplicity was its
and even
strength.
the fate
The Japanese were intercepting American communications just as the Americans were reading Japanese messages. If they overheard an unencrypted emergency message about water shortages at Midway, they would have no reason to suspect it was false. Water desalination equipment broke down regularly in tropical climates. A shortage would be a natural result of equipment failure. The Japanese intelligence services would report this useful tactical information about a potential target. Rashford immediately recognized the brilliance of Holmes's idea and brought it to Edwin Layton,
called her
who
operation
presented
one
it
of
to
the
Admiral Nimitz. Nimitz was the kind of commander willing to
best he
trust
had
his
ever
intelligence
seen.
officers and
But
take
then just as-
calculated risks. He approved the plan immediately. The garrison commander at Midway received instructions via secure submarine cable, a communications method the Japanese couldn't intercept, to transmit an emergency request for water supplies in plain language that anyone monitoring radio frequencies could intercept. Around May 19th to 21st, 1942, Midway sent the message. The transmission went out in clear, unencrypted language, reporting equipment problems and requesting emergency water supplies from Pearl Harbor. Within 2 days, Station HYPO intercepted a Japanese intelligence report. The message sent in JN-25 and partially decrypted by Rashford's team stated that AF was experiencing water shortages. The proof was irrefutable. AF meant Midway.
captured
The Japanese were
She
coming,
seemed to
but
vanish
Washington
from
remained
it. So
skeptical.
where exactly did Alice Ferrigno
OP-20G
go?
insisted the attack
What
would come
really
in
happened
mid-June,
to the singer?
while Station
Join us
HYPO
as we
predicted
uncover the
late May or
mysterious
early
journey of
June
one of
based
Britain's
on
Got
date
Talent's
indicators and
most
messages.
memorable stars.
The
Alice
daytime groups
Ferrigno.
in Japanese messages were super enciphered beyond the standard JN-25 encryption, making them particularly difficult to decrypt. OP-20G hadn't broken the daytime encryption. Station HYPO had, thanks to a breakthrough by Lieutenant Joseph Finnegan. Finnegan, working under Deere's supervision, discovered the method the Japanese used to encrypt their daytime groups. It was a separate system layered on top of JN-25, requiring additional mathematical analysis. Edwin Layton in his memoir, And I was there specifically credited Finnegan with discovering the method that the Japanese had used to lock up their daytime groups. This breakthrough allowed Station HYPO to determine not just where the Japanese would strike, but when. On May 26th, they intercepted orders for 2 destroyer groups escorting invasion transports, and successfully decrypted the daytime data using Finnegan's methods. The order specified that the attack would occur on either June 4th or 5th, 1942. This level of precision was unprecedented. Admiral Nimitz would know not just where to position his forces, but when the enemy would arrive. The Washington analysts questioned whether Rashford was being too aggressive in his interpretations, reading certainty into partial messages, letting his confidence overcome analytical caution. Admiral King remained unconvinced. The career consequences for Rashford, if he was wrong, would be catastrophic. He would be blamed for misleading the Pacific Fleet commander, for risking America's last carriers on a faulty analysis. His career would be over, and worse, American sailors would die because of his mistake. But Rashford stood by his analysis. His team had been working 18 to 24-hour shifts for weeks, surviving on coffee, cigarettes, and occasional sandwiches brought to the basement. The evidence was overwhelming. The volume of message traffic, the units involved, the logistical preparations, the date indicators, and the water ruse confirmation all pointed to the same conclusion. Midway, early June, for carriers. This was Japan's next major operation. By May 27th, Rashford's team had decrypted enough messages to provide Nimitz with almost the entire Japanese order of battle. They knew the Japanese force would include 4 fleet carriers: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. These were the same carriers that had attacked Pearl Harbor, the most experienced carrier division in the world. They knew the force would include 2 battleships, among them Yamamoto's flagship Yamato, the largest and most powerful battleship ever built. They knew about the 2 heavy cruisers, 1 light cruiser, and 12 destroyers providing escort. They knew about approximately 250 carrier aircraft flown by pilots with hundreds of hours of combat experience. They knew about the invasion force carrying 5,000 troops scheduled to land on Midway on June 7th. The intelligence was so detailed that Nimitz's staff could predict the Japanese approach route, the timing of the first airstrikes, and even the composition of the attack formations. Suggested a second strike on Midway would be necessary to completely suppress the base. Following doctrine, he ordered his reserve aircraft rearmed with land attack bombs for a second strike. Ordnance crews began removing the armor-piercing bombs and torpedoes from the aircraft spotted on the hangar decks, replacing them with high-explosive bombs designed for land targets. Then at 7:28 a.m., everything changed. A Japanese scout plane launched late due to a catapult problem reported sighting 10 American surface ships to the northeast. The scout's initial report didn't specify ship types, but the presence of any American ships in the area was unexpected. Nagumo suddenly faced the possibility of American carriers in the area, something he had been assured was impossible. Yorktown was supposedly sunk. Enterprise and Hornet were supposedly nowhere near Midway. Nagumo immediately halted the rearming process and ordered his aircraft switched back to anti-ship weapons, torpedoes, and armor-piercing bombs. The ordnance crews reversed course, removing the land attack bombs they had just loaded, bringing up anti-ship weapons from the magazines. The flight decks and hangars of all 4 Japanese carriers became scenes of controlled chaos. Bombs that had just been mounted on aircraft were removed and sent below. Torpedoes were brought up from magazines and attached to aircraft. Fuel lines remained connected to planes as they were being rearmed. Loose ordnance, both bombs and torpedoes, piled up on deck because there wasn't time to properly store everything below while simultaneously preparing for launch. It was the most dangerous situation possible on an aircraft carrier, fully fueled planes surrounded by loose bombs and torpedoes with aviation gas fumes thick in the air. At 10:22 a.m., American dive bombers arrived overhead. 3 squadrons of Douglas Dauntless dive bombers from Enterprise and Yorktown had become separated from their fighters and torpedo bombers during the flight to the target, but they had found the Japanese carriers at the perfect moment. Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey, leading Enterprise's air group, had extended his search beyond the expected intercept point, gambling his fuel reserves on finding the Japanese. His decision paid off when he spotted the wake of a Japanese destroyer racing to rejoin the carrier force. The Japanese carriers were attempting to launch their strike against the American fleet. Their decks were crowded with fully armed and fueled aircraft. Their combat air patrol fighters were at sea level, having just finished destroying the last of the American torpedo bomber attacks. The Devastator torpedo bombers from all three American carriers had attacked with suicidal courage, knowing their slow aircraft stood little chance against Zeros. 41 torpedo bombers attacked, 35 were shot down. Not a single torpedo hit. But their sacrifice drew the Japanese fighters down to sea level and disrupted Japanese defensive coordination. The dauntless pilots push over into their dives from 14,000 feet, screaming down at speeds approaching 250 knots. In approximately 6 minutes of perfectly coordinated attacks, they destroyed 3 Japanese carriers. The timing was so precise, the attack so well executed, that to Japanese observers it seemed like a single overwhelming assault. The Akagi took a bomb through the flight deck that detonated in the hangar bay among armed and fueled aircraft. Secondary explosions ripped through the ship. Fires spread instantly through aviation fuel spilled on the hangar deck. Within minutes, Akagi was burning out of control. Admiral Nagumo and his staff had to abandon the flagship. The Kaga suffered 4 bomb hits in rapid succession. The forward elevator was blown out of its shaft. The bridge structure was wrecked. Fires engulfed the ship from bow to stern. Ammunition and fuel explosions continued for hours. Kaga's captain ordered abandoned ship but stayed aboard himself, going down with his command. The Soria took 3 direct hits. All 3 struck within seconds of each other, devastating the ship. The flight deck ruptured. The hangar became an inferno. Soria's crew fought to save their ship, but the damage was catastrophic. After 20 minutes of firefighting, the captain ordered the crew to abandon ship. He remained aboard. Soria sank 7 hours later, taking 711 men with her. All 3 carriers were doomed within minutes, their crews abandoning ship as uncontrollable fires consumed the vessels. Japanese damage control procedures, which emphasized firefighting over flooding control, couldn't cope with the scale of the damage and the fuel fires. The 4th carrier, Hiryu, had become separated from the others earlier in the day and escaped the initial attack. She launched strikes that badly damaged the Yorktown, hitting the American carrier with bombs and torpedoes that brought her to a halt. But American dive bombers found the Hiryu later that afternoon and left her burning like her sister ships. By evening on June 4th, all 4 Japanese fleet carriers were sinking or abandoned. Japan lost 57 men, including many of her most experienced pilots and maintenance crews. Among the dead were some of the most skilled aviators in the world, men who had bombed Pearl Harbor, conquered the Philippines, the Prince of Wales and repulsed, and dominated the Pacific for 6 months. Their loss would prove impossible to replace. The United States lost the Yorktown, which succumbed to submarine torpedoes 2 days later while under tow. The Japanese submarine I-168 found the carrier on June 6th and put 2 torpedoes into her hull. A 3rd torpedo sank the destroyer Hammond alongside Yorktown. The carrier rolled over and sank on June 7. American casualties totaled 362 men. In approximately 6 minutes of perfectly executed dive bombing, the war in the Pacific had changed. The transformation was total and irreversible. Japan had begun the war with overwhelming carrier strength. After Midway, she had lost 4 of her 6 fleet carriers and could not replace them. Japanese shipyards could not match American production capacity. The United States was about to commission dozens of new carriers from its enormous industrial base. The Essex-class carriers were already under construction, each one larger and more capable than the carriers lost at Midway. Japan would never again conduct offensive operations. Every subsequent battle would be defensive, attempting to hold what she had already captured. The mathematics of American industrial power would grind Japan down slowly but inevitably. The transformation that Rochefort's intelligence had made possible would shape the entire Pacific War. And it had all begun with 5-digit number groups on punch cards in a basement in Hawaii. The timing of the dive bomber attack, arriving just as the Japanese carriers were most vulnerable, was partly luck, but also partly the result of understanding the enemy's operational procedures well enough to predict when they would be rearming aircraft. None of that would have been possible without the breakthrough against JN-25 and the brutal analytical work that allowed Rochefort's team to read Japanese intentions. But recognition for this achievement would prove elusive and politically fraught. The bureaucratic warfare between Station Hypo and OP-20G in Washington intensified after Midway rather than resolving. Both organizations claimed credit for the victory. Washington argued that their analysis had contributed to the success. Station Hypo insisted their work had been decisive. The dispute became personal and bitter. Commander John Redman, who led OP-20G, resented Rochefort's independence and his direct relationship with Nimitz. Redman's brother, Rear Admiral Joseph Redman, held a senior position in naval communications and supported his brother's efforts to centralize control of cryptanalysis in Washington. Admiral Ernest King, the chief of naval operations, supported the Redman brothers. King believed in centralized command and distrusted Rochefort's informal methods. In October 1942, just 4 months after Midway, Rochefort was relieved of command at Station Hypo and reassigned to command a floating dry dock in San Francisco. The official reason was that he needed sea duty for career advancement. Everyone understood it as punishment for insubordination. Rochefort had been right about Midway. His analysis had enabled the greatest American naval victory of the war. But he had bypassed the chain of command, antagonized powerful officers in Washington, and made enemies of the Redman brothers. Admiral Nimitz was reportedly enraged but couldn't prevent the removal. King commanded the entire Navy. Nimitz commanded the Pacific Fleet. In a dispute between fleet commanders and the Chief of Naval Operations, Nimitz recommended Rochefort for the Distinguished Service Medal immediately after Midway, citing his sustained superior performance and noting that his work contributed in large measure to the victory. King's office denied the order. Rochefort would never return to cryptanalysis. He commanded the floating dry dock, a backwater assignment for an officer of his capabilities. Later, he was assigned to administrative duties at Pacific Fleet headquarters. He never received the sea command he wanted. He never advanced beyond the rank of captain. When he retired in 1953, it was without the recognition his Midway achievement deserved. The denial of recognition was a grave injustice that would take decades to correct. But the work continued throughout the rest of 1942 and into 1943. Station Hypo continued reading Japanese naval communications. Though under new leadership, the intelligence supported the Canal campaign, where American and Japanese forces fought a brutal 6-month battle for control of the strategic island. Intelligence from decrypted messages helped position American ships for naval engagements, the Japanese reinforcement convoys, and provided strategic warning of Japanese intentions. The intelligence supported the island-hopping strategy across the Central Pacific as American forces bypassed strong Japanese garrisons and seized less defended islands, cutting Japanese supply lines and moving ever closer to Japan. Each operation benefited from signals intelligence that revealed Japanese dispositions, identified weak points, and warned of counterattacks. Station Hypo's work eventually contributed to Operation Vengeance in April 1943 when American fighters intercepted and shot down Admiral Yamamoto's aircraft based on decrypted flight plans. Yamamoto was flying from Rabaul to Bougainville to inspect frontline units. Station Hypo intercepted and decrypted messages containing his complete itinerary, including departure time, route, and arrival time. The intelligence went up the chain to President Roosevelt, who authorized the mission. 18 P-38 Lightning fighters flew from Guadalcanal, intercepted Yamamoto's transport exactly on schedule, and shot it down. Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor and Japan's greatest naval strategist, died in the jungle of Bougainville. His loss was a devastating blow to Japanese morale. Thomas Deere remained at Station Hypo throughout the war, rising to captain. His work on JN-25 and his supervision of the critical breakthroughs that enabled Midway would make him known within cryptologic circles as the father of machine cryptanalysis. After the war, he became one of the 3 primary cryptanalytic trainers for both the Armed Forces Security Agency and later the National Security Agency, along with William Friedman and Lamrose Kalimahos. His techniques for using IBM machines in cryptanalysis influenced a generation of signals intelligence professionals. Edwin Layton, Nimitz's intelligence officer, who had championed Rashford's analysis and presented it to Nimitz, served throughout the Pacific War and retired as a rear admiral. He spent decades after the war working to get recognition for Rashford's contributions. His memoir, And I Was There, published in 1985, provided detailed documentation of Rashford's achievements and the injustice of his treatment. Layton never stopped advocating for his friend. Joseph Finnegan, who discovered how to decrypt the Japanese daytime groups, continued his cryptanalytic career and became a leading figure in post-war signals intelligence. His breakthrough had been crucial to determining the attack date, allowing Nimitz to position forces with perfect timing. Without knowing the date, American carriers might have arrived too early and exhausted their fuel, or too late and missed the battle entirely. The linguists, traffic analysts, and cryptanalysts who had worked those impossible hours in the dungeon at Pearl Harbor went on to various careers. Most never spoke publicly about their wartime work due to classification restrictions that lasted for decades. The institutional memory of their achievement remained classified until the 1970s, more than 30 years after the war ended. Families didn't know what their fathers and husbands had done. Neighbors didn't understand why certain men had spent the war in Hawaii rather than fighting. The cryptanalysts carried their secrets in silence, unable to claim credit for achievements that had changed history. The true scope of American success against Japanese codes wasn't declassified until the mid-1970s when the National Security Agency began releasing historical documents